Thank you very much for your presentations and your input. And welcome to today's panel discussion on the role of AI and investor relations. I'd like to maybe kick off first with a question, go back to the legal framework of AI and its implications. Maybe you could just go back to those frameworks about the AI convention that we have spoken before, that you have shown, and the EU AI Act. So how do you assess Switzerland's planned integration of the AI convention compared to the EU AI Act, especially for the listed companies? What are the implications? What do listed companies need to watch out for?
I'll take that one. So I think from my perspective, it's no surprise that we're integrating the AI convention. As I said, Switzerland played a big role in negotiating the convention and the principles behind it. It's also no surprise that the EU AI Act, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the criticism about it, Switzerland's trying to go a bit of a different way, which is more the Swiss way in this respect, where, as I mentioned, we'll have sector-specific rules. Still, the EU AI Act will apply if you deploy AI systems in your companies established in the EU. So what I think is important for listed companies is sort of the slide also that Lucas showed with the different topics that should be covered when you're going to use AI systems. Because even if we're not having like a horizontal AI regulation in Switzerland, the sector-specific rules will, of course, be modeled according to some of the obligations that we see that the EU AI Act is bringing. So we'll have topics of transparency, which I'm not sure where they're going to place it, in which sector, but I assume it'll be connected a lot to the Data Protection Act, where we already have a lot of transparency obligations. So there you cover different aspects like informing when you're using AI, if something's AI produced on your website, or if there's a chatbot that there's no human behind it and you have AI answering questions. That would be something that I believe is something you should look at. Then the whole governance topic, so setting it up properly, making sure that when you implement AI systems in your company, you're doing it in a thought-out way. Of course, we want to be fast in implementing and using AI, but you have to know what rules apply to you and what you should watch out for. So you have to have some sort of governance in figuring out what do we do when we see an AI tool we want to use, how do we assess it, what do we use it for, what data do we feed it, and how are our employees allowed to use it. And then I think there will be a lot about, that's all connected to having trustworthy AI. So what do we mean by trustworthy AI is really having AI in place that's compliant with all the rules that you have to comply to. And I think those are some topics that will be important for listed companies. And then, of course, the whole all the IP topics where we'll have regulation in the Copyright Act and so on. That will be important when you're training models that you're going to use, especially if you're fine-tuning AI models for your business.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rihanna. What on top of that? What are then for a listed company, what are the legal risks? When they use AI-generated content in financial communications. No one wants to be sued. No one wants to risk that. Everyone wants to be on the compliance side. How should they? What are the risks? What should the companies watch out for?
So the primary risk in financial markets is always the liability for wrong or missing or misleading information. And you do have the prospectus that's written by lawyers. It usually is correct, but then other similar information may also be subject to the prospectus liability. So the underlying fear is basically that because we deal with very large amounts of money in capital markets, so transactions may be 100, 200 million, but also maybe several billions. That if any information is missing or wrong, the company or the management, the board of directors of the company would then be liable for damages caused by this wrong information to investors. And that's just the civil law aspect, but having wrong information in a prospectus is also subject to penal law sanctions, so fine or imprisonment. And the consequences are very severe, also for individual persons. These are the main concerns, but then there's also the whole SX6 regulation. So for ad hoc publicity breaches or other breaches, there can also be severe sanctions or enforcement proceedings, and in a worst case may even lead to delisting of a company. So what we or basically my message or our message to you is there are work products of the AI, depending on what they are, but should typically still be signed off by a legal person, even though the AI may be trained. But at the end of the day, the company still has the responsibility. And if this check is not made by the legal team, there's no guarantee that some of the information may be wrong.
This brings me a bit directly to Q4 as well. We've seen what Q can do, all the things, how fast it is, how much time it saves as well. But for AI-generated content, how do we ensure that it is actually compliant then? You know, that's what people want to feel sure that it is compliant, it is explainable from a regulatory perspective. How do you do that?
Yeah, so all of the data within there is, you're able to track the source of it as well. So not only, as I mentioned before, it's trained around regulation and disclosure. So that's the base of it. Like, that's how we have set it up and how we've trained it. So it's not an AI that has been tweaked for IR. It is built specifically for IR. So it is based off Claude. So it's an LLM that we have trained, but it doesn't go the opposite way around, if that makes sense. So your data doesn't go and train that model. So it's all within a secure environment. Our Q4 platform is SOC 2 Type 2 security regulated. So, and that's not just us providing that verification. We actually have external auditors that come in every year to provide that security assessment as well. And as I mentioned before, we've got multiple companies that come in and require us to go through lots of different security measures as well. So, and I think to your point that you mentioned a minute ago, you can go in and you can ask Q to guide you in what should happen. So it can guide you around the disclosures and the regulations. It can almost set you on the right path to be able to do something, but it should never be, and I think AI in general should never be the final thing that you're presenting. And I think we've all seen that. It doesn't matter what part of the business that you're in. It's there to be able to almost act as that kind of knowledge management system. And I think a lot of companies just in the last year have been really digging into that knowledge management piece. There's so much data out there and there's so much source material. And the AI is there to be able to make sure that it can collate all of that for you. So you get the best insights in a timely manner so that you can go and do something, quote unquote, more important within your role. It's not always going to be there to get every single element completely correct from a company standpoint. You have to be able to put that guise over it, and you have to have other people within your businesses to be able to overlook it to make sure that it is doing as you would want it to do within a corporate environment as well.
Where does it get the regulatory information from? From the internet? Or?
So it's all from Claude itself. So yes, it's pulled from verified sources, so it will be from SIX itself, or it will be from FINMA itself, so it pulls all of that data, and I think it's updated as much as Claude is updated, which I think is like every few months, and then that's what feeds into our LLM. But again, the feeding of the information comes in this way, but your data and everything doesn't go back out that way. It's just the information, and it's always on trusted, verified sources. So again, the sources that we have are either from the LLM from trusted sources, or it'll be from the data that we buy, or it will be put in by yourself, so you can download and put things in, or it's from the data that clients actually put into the system themselves as well.
Fantastic. Maybe you could just, Tish, quickly just again summarize what the solutions are that Q gives to IR officers, whether that's preparing an earnings call or going back, analyzing transcription of such an earnings call. What can our audience expect?
Yeah, so it's quite hard to quantify, to be honest, because there are you can literally ask it anything. So it's all about if you start off by thinking about the data that feeds into it, and then you can literally ask it to summarize, to analyze, to look at trends about anything within those data sets. So the Q4 is on the Q4 platform, and as I mentioned right at the start in one of my demos, the Q4 platform has where our clients go in for IR websites. It's where they put in their earnings and their results calls as well, so they can book them in there. They can update their websites from within that platform as well, so it's all within the safe security environment. And then obviously you can get all the analytics from your websites, from your earnings calls. And then on top of that, you've got, if you're a CRM client, you've got all of your CRM data going in. And like I mentioned in the demo, you don't need to be the CRM client. You can actually upload your CRM data yourself. You can upload research reports if they're not publicly available, because I know some research reports aren't available, like in FactSet or S&P. So you can put those in yourself as well. You can literally upload anything that you want for Q to be able to analyze in the fashion that it would do for anything that it has access to within the platform itself. So then we also have shareholder ID, so you can go into a lot of detail within your own sphere of information. And then there's all the public information that sits on top of that. So if you're looking to compare yourself against any of your peers, the Q will understand who your peers are. So when you just ask a generic question, like I want to be able to look at my engagement versus my earnings call versus the peers' earnings calls that have happened over the last quarter, it will just automatically know what all of that means, and it will collate all of that information for you. So it's really about that knowledge management piece and trying to dig into it. And you can start very basic. You can ask very, very small basic questions, or you can start to go into, like I showed you with that more Swiss regulated one, some really quite complex asks, and it will deliver the same types of results for you as well.
Fantastic. I think now is maybe the time also to take a few questions from the audience. Are there any questions for our speakers, for Q or for the legal implications? Any questions? Yeah, we got someone up there.
Hi, question to Tish. Q, can you please elaborate on the customers Q has right now in terms of market size or market capitalization? Just give me a little bit of feel for.
Yeah, so we launched Q only a couple of months ago. So what we are in at the moment is we went through like a beta phase first with a load of clients, and then we went through what we call like a limited time access with quite a number. So I would say there was quite a few hundred of our clients that opted in for that. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to get them in there and to be using the tool, to be putting more prompts in there, to be feeding back to our product team. So we've gone through all of that phase now, and now the phase that we're in is we've got probably over 100 of our clients, so it's very, very new at this stage, who are using Q, and now it's actually open to the broader market. So we're now able to sell it to prospective clients as well. And then what we've got is clients who have like our desktop and our CRM, they get it basically for a limited time into next year, because what we're doing is we're working on adding new features into it. So it's from a SaaS company point of view, we're doing it in stages so that we can go through it with our clients and make sure that we get the most value from the product as we release it, like in stages to the market.
Any other further questions for Q or for Kellerhals Karad? I see probably most of you know already everything. But well, then I would like to go back maybe for Kellerhals and ask a couple of questions to you guys. As for now for the IR teams within the companies, how should they then now navigate these regulatory requirements around transparency, data ownership, and liability? What's the best practice? How should that look like on a day-to-day basis? You know.
You need to distinguish the company perspective and then the AI product perspective. So on the company level, a general view on how do we want to use AI is needed, and then the organization required to make sure that the use is conducted adequately. Then on an AI product level, a lot is done by the provider, but the company in a way needs to be sure that this is compliant. So how can this be done? So what's your experience with your clients?
Yeah.
They must ask you the same questions.
I think it's been a surprise to a lot of the clients that we've been working with, actually, because I think from a decision maker point of view, they see something that they like and then they want to be able to integrate it. But as soon as AI comes into it, there's quite a few businesses that haven't really thought about it at a really deep level. And especially when you're thinking about IR being so close to the C-suite, it starts to invoke IT teams, legal teams. So we actually now try and get a lot of those teams involved in the early on conversations, because that's where it's going to be headed. And our IT teams and legal teams are very used to being able to speak to them about it. We show them everything, and then we go through any of the questions that they normally have.
So what I could envision, for example, is that some standards are elaborated, or maybe even labels or certifications that you would say, this is US compliance approved, this is Switzerland compliance approved. Some way to recognize what you're dealing with as opposed to the free tools that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, in different regions, it's wildly different, but it's also just different sectors make a massive difference as to how much they go into their legal team requirements versus how much they're just allowed to do on their own. And especially if a company has already gone through that kind of rigmarole already internally, and they are an AI-driven company, it makes it, sometimes it makes it a lot easier for them to understand, but it also makes it harder because they understand all the risks, and then we just have to go through the processes. We're used to it, and we have done, as I mentioned, with the Fortune 500 companies, the risk assessments that we have to go to are needed, and we just go through the natural processes.
You know, when you showed the sustainability-related requirements, we published a book last year called Sustainable Finance in Switzerland, and it's also available online. And it looked really familiar. I was wondering whether it was taking words out of that online publication.
It's a verified source, I don't know.
Yeah, it must be, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Probably not, but yeah, so very interesting to see that.
And I think also one point that probably is important on your side and on the side of the clients is that one topic, Michael, that you just touched upon, the data ownership, right? So when the data that I input as a user goes into the tool, so the questions I'm asking, the documents that Q or any other AI system is pulling from my systems, I think that's one of the pressure points that you'd have to look out for, but that wouldn't be specific for the IR teams, but it would be a company-wide topic, right? How are you allowed to use it? What kind of data do we feed into it? And I'd be curious to see So when you said you had beta testing with some of your customers, I'm sure that's one of the points they looked at, right? What happens to the data we input, what happens to our prompts, and so on, because there sometimes you have sensitive data, you have personal data, you have confidential data potentially, and how that works.
Absolutely. I mean, so Q, as I mentioned, is on that platform already, and that platform has been in existence for a number of different years, and we've been dealing with, material non-public information on our website with our website clients for years. So we understand the difference between being able to keep that information safe and secure. We used to have clients that, I say back in the old days, but it's it's only a few years old, where they would email in all of their information ahead of putting it onto their websites, and obviously emails can easily be hacked. And these days, our clients use our web management app to input all of their data in, so it's all sitting within that safe, secure environment, and they know that information's not going anywhere. And even when you do your own prompts in Q, so you might have your company container, but your dashboards and your prompts are for you to see only. And I think we were talking about this earlier, where one of my clients mentioned that they were asking Q a number of different questions, and at the end it says, how can I portray this to my CEO because he doesn't agree with my position? Mm-hmm. And of course, what's good to know is that the CEO could go into Q and he wouldn't be able to see that she'd written that prompt in there. So everything stays within its required kind of container as well.
Great, fantastic. And for maybe watching out in the future, what kind of future developments do you see now for Q, for instance? What else do you expect for this platform?
So I'll give you two answers for this, because I might have consulted Q on this as well. But from my perspective, and from Q4's perspective, it really is about the IR workflow piece. It's being able to integrate AI across the workflow. So, if we're thinking about quarters, it's starting from when you're looking to go into an earnings and results season, all of the material that you need to prepare, the investor targeting, the working on your websites, the updating your websites, going through the earnings period and then coming out the other side, and all the analysis that you need to do across all of those different data sets, and being able to deliver it to different types of stakeholders, to be able to understand that what you've just done is hitting the right note, what you need to change, and how you get to that next strategy going forward. So that's the way in which we see AI going, and for it to become more powerful. When I asked Q what it would like, it was saying that actually more pattern analyzation and behavioral intelligence, in terms of being able to look at your earnings and your results presentation, looking at the results that you've had, then looking at what investor behavior might have been before and which investor behavior doesn't correlate to what you're experiencing, pulling out insights immediately and being able to say, you need to contact this investor because it did this last time with this peer, but it's not doing it this time. And it's that type of, I think, insight that would be amazing. But we're not quite there yet in terms of the data that's feeding in and the power of the AI. But that's where I also see the trends and the behavioral analysis being a bit more powerful.
Okay. That's more of so Q is more of an internal IRO, right? An assistant, a support.
Exactly, it's that partner.
What about an external IRO? Can we expect that at some point? And are their jobs safe on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think AI is here to replace IR. I think we all know IR's job and role is, from a strategic point of view, is very important. And I don't think, as much as the AI tool can understand the IR context and the language and be able to deliver that to you, that strategic level is definitely needed to be delivered by an individual. And also the relationship management and that intuition, that is something that AI could never replace. But what AI does is it frees up your time to be able to do the things that you're just not able to find the time to do, because every IR role just has more and more job roles that it needs to do at the moment. You do find that there are outward projections of CEOs and all of those things happening at the moment with AI. But I think from within IR, it's really that knowledge management piece and being able to get AI to help you with the foundation work and the analysis in order for you to become better at your jobs as well.
Right. And Rihanna and Luca, what still needs to be done on on the legal framework? How will it develop? And there's probably some granularity missing, right? I guess looking to the future, what else should be? How should be the legal framework be complemented in the future?
I mean, I think it's a difficult question. Well, it's not so easy to answer because we have the AI Act in the EU that's sort of dominating or very dominant at the moment, and everyone's sort of trying to be compliant with that. From that perspective, Switzerland's taking this approach of sector-specific rules. And I think from a company's point of view, I think it's really important to understand which legislation are you dealing with. Are you only subject to Swiss law? Then comply with the Swiss requirements and see what's going to happen there. But if you, as soon as you feel that the EU plays a role in your work and you're going to need to be compliant with that, I think there it's going to be really important to check what AI are we using, what AI are we developing or fine-tuning, and in what kind of risk classification does it fall within the framework of the EU Act, because that's where the big obligations then come in, right? If you're just using a simple AI that a lot of us have been using in the last 10 years anyway, then you don't need to be worried about. But when you start using general purpose models or LLMs, and then you go into this high risk, especially catching on like behavioral analysis, you're going to be moving towards high risk AI systems, and then you really need a whole framework to comply with. And I don't think that Switzerland's going to completely move away from that risk classification. So there will be something coming in that sense. Especially because those are the topics that even in the AI convention have been focused on, right? Ensuring democracy, ensuring transparency, ensuring data protection, and that's where the high-risk AI systems come in. I don't know if you want to add anything, Luca.
I think at some point, from a legal perspective, I would try to embed the legal and compliance team of the issuer within the tool, so that for certain kinds of communication that go out, you would have to get an approval by the compliance officer before it can actually go out. So like a technical barrier that forces a check of the basically sound judgment of the tool at the end, and you can still save a lot of time. But to me, maybe I'm getting old, but to fully trust the AI, based on my experience with these tools, when I ask them to do legal tasks, like write me a capital markets prospectus, for example, the result is not usable yet. So it's not sufficiently good yet to always replace the lawyers.
And I think that's where legislation agrees with, right? That's why we have always that one factor of saying you always need human oversight, which then plays into what you said, Tish, that we're not going to have it replace us yet, at least, because we need that experience, we need the input, we need to make sure that it complies with all the topics and risks that we sort of showed at the beginning, right? We need to make sure that the output is non-discriminatory. We need to ensure that the hallucinations have been kept to a minimum, or there are none at all in what then goes public, right? So the human oversight will be one of the key points, which means all of us need to really understand what we're doing when we use AI.
Are there any questions on that from the audience? No, then I would say, are there any, from your side, do you have any other further messages that you would like to share with our listeners? Key messages, takeaways?
I would like to encourage everybody to just get involved in AI. I mean, to be honest, from my point of view, I wasn't very user-friendly with it, probably about a year and a half ago. I hadn't used it very much. I was thinking, how do you go in there and what questions do I ask? And as I mentioned before, now you need to like drag me out by my ankles when I get involved in it, because I can have a good argument with Q and ChatGPT sometimes. But I would just get in there personally as well as I would do professionally, because the more that you converse with any type of AI, the more that you understand how you need to position something, the better that you're going to feel comfortable with it. I mean, we're lucky with Q because it understands prompts and it has prompts available. But actually, I would get comfortable yourself, because the more comfortable you are with something, the easier that you're going to find it. The fear goes, and actually the more benefit that you're going to get from it as well.
Fantastic. From you guys?
I fully agree. It's a huge opportunity. Whoever has tried it and starts to learn to use it, not just like Google, but with prompts, sees it's an incredible tool, and we all cannot afford not to be part of this big trend and position ourselves.
Fantastic. Great. Then I would say that one of the key takeaways is it will free up your time, but you will have to do the whole compliance work and be very careful about that. Thanks a lot for our speakers, and thank you for being here, let's say.
Thank you.
Thank you.